Footy and Frothies, Daggy and Barney are back to, well, we'll talk about whatever it is that happened last night and preview round, what are we up to, 17 of National Rugby League? That's been a long day. How are you, David?
It's been a long day. Yeah, pretty good, mate. Very good. Just finished up cooking dinner, so ready to rip into this and talk about the demolishment of New South Wales once again at Suncorp Stadium, and then get on to what looks like a pretty interesting round of footy.
It is interesting round of footy ahead, but as you said, we'll kick off. Oh, actually, we'll knock over the news because there's a breaking
A
story
little bit
today. Des
around.
Hasler is coaching the Titans now, apparently, which came as news to Justin Holbrook, came as news to Mal Meninga as well. But he's out of a job, effective immediately. And the assistant coach, whose name just escapes me, apologise. I did read it earlier. Will take over for the rest of the year, and Desi's going to come in pre-season. I guess the writing had been on the wall, but it's not like they've been getting flogged the last couple.
No, they've been in. That's probably part of the reason he may have got sacked. To be honest, they've been in a lot of games this year and
Oh
let
yeah,
go of some pretty good leads where the spot on the table would be completely different if they'd held on to a few of those games, even half of them. They'd probably be halfway through the top eight, I would imagine, if they'd won half of those games that they've blown 15, 20, 14, 20-point leads in. The thing I like about this is nobody knew about it. For once, there were some
yeah.
negotiations done by a club, and it was kept, within their house, and not even a whisper of it was going on in the background. So, well done to the Titans. It's pretty professional to do that kind of stuff these days, and not have the world hear about it before you actually announce what's
Mm.
going on.
From both parties as well.
Obviously, yeah,
From
Desi and
management of
his
Desi,
management.
doing the same. So I guess we'll see what he brings to the table. There's enough talent in that squad where they should be in and around the eight, I would say. So we'll see what he can bring to the table next year. Jake Cavarillo's heading north as well. He's off to the Dolphins for 3 years, is the other, I guess, big signing news. So they continue to shore up the stocks there. Again, I'm not quite sure where he plays, given who's there now and that they've got Herbie coming as well in the centres.
Yeah, it
We'll
looks like it
wait and
might be a
see on
backup
that.
job.
Well, they've got Cody Nicarima as well. So,
Yeah.
uh, got, got some stocks there now. Again, we'll see what that brings. And Parramatta have shored up, much to the rejoicement of all their fans, Josh Hodgson for another year. Dejan Arce, Bailey Simonson, and Matt Dory all have extended their current stay. Sonny Luke has done to 2025 as well. I guess that's that. Out
Before all
of,
the
I haven't
Farah
seen.
fans go and burn down the club, I'm pretty sure that Hodgson was an option in his favour. I don't think the club went out of their way to extend him, but they sort of didn't have any other option but extend him when he decided to take up his option. So we'll see what that brings, as you like to say. Dejan Arce obviously shores up the rest of the season there with Dylan Brown still questionable on what's going on there, and seems like a pretty decent backup half option for them in the future. Um, yeah, the rest of it, Sonny Luke was probably always going to stay at Penrith. I'm not sure if he is the full time option at the moment. They seem to be going away from him a little bit at present. So
If he's happy, he's happy. I suppose he has. I don't think he's necessarily knocking the door down to be offered hundreds of thousands of dollars at other clubs just yet. So that is what it is. And judiciary news that all the handbags at 10 paces at full time last night, they all got fined. So no
I'm
times
surprised for
will be
Fox
missed.
didn't get a week
Yes. I imagine
just
if
because
he
he
actually
didn't
connected.
connect in the middle of the face. Like,
Yeah.
it was a pretty poor punch that ended up hitting the neck and the shoulder. But just the act of throwing a punch, I'm pretty sure it deserved a week. But
Yeah. I wouldn't argue with you about it. We've seen worse, cop it.
yeah,
But fines for the rest of them, for better or worse. Whatever. What? Who
bit of
cares?
stupidity. It
Uh,
really,
yeah.
realistically, it only let the Queenslanders laugh at us for a little bit longer before full times.
By that stage, I was laughing at us, so it didn't matter. We may as well get stuck into that. Any other news that you had up your
No,
sleeve?
pretty much you touched on everything that I've heard the last day or two.
And Ben Hunt's going to play this week, so whatever's happening there is going to
apparently.
happen in the background. Apparently, he's not going to let the boys down, so good on him. 32-6, State of Origin last night. The Queenslanders looked an entirely better coached, fitter, more athletic, stronger, tougher football team than what New South Wales produced. What did the stats say, Barn?
6 tries to 1, 4 out of 6 conversions, played 1 out of 1 for New South Wales. 82% completion, played 73% for New South Wales. 7 line breaks for Queensland, 2 for New South Wales. 34 tackle busts, played 42. 8 offloads, 13. 300 plus kick meters for Queensland, which is something I've been mentioning the last couple of series, to be honest. 1 forced dropout from both sides. 357 tackles, played 319. Couple of intercepts for Queensland, 12 errors apiece, 8 penalties conceded to 2, 1 ruck infringement to 2, 1 inside the 10 against Queensland. Send off from both sides for pretend headbutts and a sin bin for a really horrible punch. That's about all I've got there. I didn't know super coach for these guys.
Did you know, Bun, if social media was to be believed, 2 forward passes cost New South Wales this game? You're rough, eh?
New South Wales probably should have been leading at half time with all the opportunities they had, and they just couldn't crack them. Other than that, the second half they were completely and utterly dominated from, like New South Wales held their own in the middle and probably even were better in the middle of the field at times, but they didn't go there enough. They go one or two, and then they just start shifting the ball across the line out to the edges without any change of direction, any sleight of hand. And it was just basically catch and pass till it got to the centres or the winger, and they were expected to do it on their own. Whereas you saw with Queensland, there was a lot of angled running back in behind the ruck. There was cross plays when the ball did start moving across the back line. There was players providing second and third different running options, which, as I bang on about every week, that's what pulls defences apart. And there was very little, if any, at all from New South Wales.
We may as well talk about New South Wales because we are. We've now seen 160 minutes of this series. Can you tell me after that what exactly New South Wales' plan was for those 2 games?
Well,
There's always this excuse. There's always, oh no, Tommy, I know this. But
it was to get it to Tommy and Latrell, and Latrell
it doesn't
play
help
the
when
game, and Tommy is busted.
Like I cannot tell you what style of football they were planning to play. They weren't trying to be aggressive through the middle. They weren't, as you said, they weren't trying to hit a certain edge player. They weren't trying to dominate the ruck. They just it was like, oh, we've got a better team. We'll be sweet.
Yeah, we'll
and
just
they
get
didn't.
it to the guys that'll do one-on-one stuff, which was Tommy and Latrell, and they'll beat their player one-on-one, and they'll score their tries themselves. That's basically what it looked like for both games, for the entirety of the games. Whereas you saw Queensland would continually, you'd have Mo followed by Pat, followed by Tino, and one of them would be angling back in the ruck from a wider angle to really compress that defence. And then you get out, as soon as the ball got out to Munster, you'd have a second rower dropping on his inside. You'd have a centre holding up and sort of either crossing back inside or closing the gap between Munster to pull the defence away from the winger, or he would angle out towards the wing, and then the winger would drop under. There was just so many different sleight of hand and different changes of tact when the ball went through the hands in the back line. When you saw basically New South Wales ran straight ahead, straight at their opponent, just passed the ball to the guy on his right or on his left.
Interesting about this now. Surely, if you're thinking on the fly, if you're obliged to, and obviously for those who didn't see the game, well, everyone listening to this did. Tommy went down in the first couple of minutes. Damien Cook spent the game at centre, which, for better or worse, is what happened. Especially when you've got blokes like Yo and Murray who have played on an edge and more than capably could have done it. What if you're going to have 2 hookers on the game for 80 minutes? Why wouldn't you just attack the ruck? Keep hammering, bang, 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 bang.
Well, that's what I absolutely thought the plan would be going into this game, having the 2 hookers. Obviously, Tommy Trebojevic biscuit went down in the first couple of minutes. The bloke's had more injuries than I've had. I've had late dinners in the last couple of years. Seriously, the poor bastard cannot stay on the field for more than 3 or 4 weeks in a row. But As soon as you drag Cook out into the centres, that negates that game plan altogether in the middle of the field. You're no longer able to have the two hookers sniping in and around the ruck. And they didn't even really try to do it, to be honest. Robson's pass
Did they put
selection
up?
was questionable at times, especially down in the red zone for New South Wales. He seemed to be looking for a forward to crash over just about every time he touched the ball at dummy half. Didn't,
Yeah.
didn't really look out the back a hell of a lot, which really dulled the attacking play of New South Wales as well. So, why Murray or Yeo wasn't split centres and Cook pushed back to the bench or even back to the middle of the field got me completely dumbfounded. I have no understanding of why that would happen.
Yeah, yeah. You could have set up to have Cook and Murray just rolling and Robson just sniffing around behind. You could have had Tedesco on the back of that. You could have had all three of them. You could have Yeo and Murray in the middle, like just having a complete triple team. But
Two
anyway, none
games
of
in a
that
row
happened.
last year as well. The Queensland winger and centres made a point of coming in and putting shots on the halves and the centres for New South Wales. How many times do you see them kick in behind the line? Like as soon as that stuff starts happening, that's what clever halves have to start doing.
Yeah,
That negates them. They can't do it. If you start dropping the ball in back in behind where they were, where they're coming from, shooting out of the line to try and get you before you can get the pass away, they've got no option the second, third, and fourth time. They have to hold back that little bit because otherwise they get burned on the outside with Toto or Crichton running in behind and picking up the ball and scoring. You only saw the one little grubber in behind, and it was from Moses for himself, and it almost came up with something. It was actually a bit of
yeah,
spark that you wouldn't have expected out of New South Wales over the last couple of years because they just don't do it. But why there's not little chip over the centre that's charging at you, or the grubber along the ground was another thing that I was screaming at the telly for a good 60 minutes of this game. The two series now, they've basically shut down New South Wales halves by doing exactly that, just shooting in off the edges and getting them before they've got any time to get the ball out to the centres and the wingers.
yeah. It's it. It just reeks of like I don't know if they would have had a plan for Cook had he come on, apart from giving Robson a rest.
Yeah,
Like I don't think there's ever a plan for that sort of to extend that spine and maybe take the pressure off the halves in that way. That all being said, I don't want to knock Mitchell Moses. I thought he was almost good in this game. I
quite
would
good.
suggest.
Yeah, his kicking game was what we
He was the
needed.
most likely of all the attack. The kicking game was pretty spot on most of the way through, without busting it, without leading to points. But his long kicking was good. I would say pound for pound, he was better than what Cleary bought in game one. And I assume we won't see Jerome Luai in game three. But if they pick Moses again, I hope they do. If they've gone this far, I hope they do give him one more chance and
Yeah,
don't just suddenly bring Reynolds in for the sake of
no,
teaming him with
I
Cody
agree with
Walker.
that as well.
But
Um, Another way
uh,
that you can stop that jam in defence is have your fullback set up on the inside of your halfback. So when
yeah,
they charge in, you can drop him back under, or you can give him a short ball to go back out and around into that spot where the defenders come from. I just don't understand with the guys that have played that much footy in the box how those guys can't see that kind of stuff and get that message down to the players on the field,
yeah.
even at half
Especially
time.
but Tedesco's made a career of doing exactly that. Anyway,
Doesn't compute.
uh, uh,
But Queensland weren't awesome either. You know what I mean? Like they were good,
no.
but they weren't
Queens.
30
The quite difference
points.
is Queensland executed,
Yes,
or
absolutely.
I think by
They
the end
took
they were.
by the end they were. They took just about every opportunity that they were given. And New South Wales, every time the ball seemed to get out past the halves, had no idea what to do. Like Crichton was okay and drew a couple of players and made a couple of options once or twice,
Yeah,
but Cook was a shambles out on that left hand side. He really, once the ball got to him, it died. One bounced off his face, a couple went behind him, a couple went in front of him.
he slapped one into touch, I think. And
Slapped one into
for the record,
touch.
I just want to be on record saying I
He
thought
tried
that
his guts
Damien
out,
Cook tried
but
as hard as he
yeah,
possibly could in the
absolutely.
situation presented to him, and
Yeah,
probably I'd say did in defence did as well as he could have done.
yeah. No,
But
absolutely. They
but in
were completely
defence,
left posted out there a couple of times.
yeah.
You're right.
But guess what? The other coach went, there's a massive big gaping hole we can exploit, and then proceeded to exploit it for 75 minutes.
There's a 5 foot centre out there that we could
And
maybe kick over the top of constantly. and
Yeah.
have the big guys come and jump over the
And based on the evidence we've seen for the last 2 seasons, if the shoe was on the foot, I'd be dubious that New South Wales would change their game plan.
Then they've only had one game plan for a couple of years. I just
Yeah.
don't get it, and it's always that. Ever since that game where they blew Queensland off the park with Tommy and Latrell just absolutely killing it, they basically just played to that position on the field, and that's all they do. They just go through the motions in the middle, and then you play like there was no really chanting of offloads until very late in the game. There was no real opportunities that came off any second phase play. It was just out.
Especially when you think just how much Paulo loves second phase plays, or Payne, how much, like, surely it's not hard to get Payne Haas to have that first hit up and just have and just create the same thing we
Like I
see
think
from
they tried
Brisbane
2 or
everywhere.
3 in the first hour of the game. Like it's just, especially when things aren't going your way, you need a way to break up the defense. Queensland were happy to like you saw how many times they kicked on the third and
Yeah.
fourth tackle, and just went, we'll just tackle these guys. They're not going to break our line because all they're doing is pass it along the line. They just sat back, they'd come off their line slightly, and then they just slide once the ball started moving, or they jam in on the half and try to get him before he could get the ball out there. They were more than happy to do it.
Ultimately, as we prognosticated, perhaps Matthew Burton would have been somewhat handy in this situation. But anyway,
Sweeney would have done, would have been the perfect guy to slot in there if it wasn't him, Campbell Graham. But yeah.
I'll come back to what's next for them soon because I think we do need to actually spend some time on Queensland because they were just trying the New South Wales. I just made the point. I don't think like none of them were outright terrible. They individually they all played a solid, fine game of rugby league, but I don't think the pieces fit together.
That was it individually. And New South Wales had 3 or 4 absolute standout performances. So there was a couple of guys in this team, and the likes of Yo and Payne Haas and Cameron Murray that had fantastic games. Like Murray was
Payne Haas, one of the all-time great front row performances.
Enormous.
Yeah. He was incredible, and late in the game, the only bloke trying to drag him back into the game.
Yo played a bit more direct and was actually quite effective with his ball in hand, and he tackled everything that moved. Payne Haas, there was 3 or 4 times where it was that sort of scramble effort area mentality, and he was the only jersey in the picture. There was 4 or 5 Queensland jerseys around the place, and the only New South Wales one was Payne Haas.
Well, yeah, the kicker from that led to the hammer try.
Yeah,
he was the only one in the photo. If that happened at the other end, as I've said in the first game, there would have been 5 Queenslanders on that.
Talk about kicked on the arse. What a perfect bounce. Just straight back to hammer.
But,
opposite direction of Payne Haas and straight back to hammer. But you get that when you're on top and rolling over people.
As for Queensland, they just executed better. Their outside backs all looked fantastic. We're allowed to, but they still had to do the job. Jeremiah, I thought Nanai just brought some physicality, which we don't usually see from him. He was fantastic. Busted holes. He put a couple of nice big hits on people. Stopped in their tracks. He looked like a different player that we'd seen earlier in the year. And everyone else looked great as well. Lindsay Collins, his defensive effort both games, just holding together that middle of the field, being on bouncing balls, stopping blokes, chopping them down. Catching bouncing balls
4 times better than what he does for the wrist.
Absolutely incredible.
He was in everything, and I don't like you normally see him miss tackles and give away silly penalties and stuff. I think he gave away one early, but he was fantastic. Again, the 2 games in a row where he's been close to their best forward on the field.
Yeah.
As you said, all the outside backs look really good. There was the 2 that probably stood out the most was Coates because there was obviously a plan there to make sure that it was kicked to him consistently, and as he had the aerial advantage, as he does pretty much every game he ever plays. And I thought Tuolangi did some really nice things. He had a nice finish there, the kick back for the hammer try, as you mentioned. But even he put on a couple of really nice shots. Another try saver he pulled off with Crichton, just pulled him up that half a meter, well, not even 100 mil from the line, and held the ball up so he couldn't get it down onto the lines. I thought he was fantastic again.
Hammer, his physicality during the game was great as well. But just, I know obviously his pace and footwork's his strength, but he got involved. He defended in the line fantastically. And DC, he was just that was as good a captain's knock as you'll see
Walsh
He's
wasn't at his electrifying best, but again,
no,
just chimes in at the right time, and every time he does it extremely well. Yeah, DCE's kicking game was a big part of the difference, especially early in this game when they were in trouble. He just reef it downfield, kick it 60, 70 metres every time down into the corner
yep.
and just turn them around. He had
But
a
his
couple of
support
nice
play
little
was great.
running raids
But
as
what?
well. Yep.
Yeah, well, it ended up being he was doing a lot of that dummy half double team,
Yeah.
making meters out of there when
Skirting to an
needed.
edge, looking for your
Any support
nanos and
play, like there's no
Carrigan.
better support halfback through the middle of the field, and he
And
was
that
on show there.
fucking that chase where he pulled Crichton down, he was he's another one who
Amazing.
just seems to like he was always good at club, but he just seems to have that extra half a gear when they pull this jersey on.
Oh, he's now rubber stamped the best representative half we've got, even after the World Cup,
Looks that way.
far and away. But he allows Munster and Walsh to have to chime in when they need to, and
Yeah,
they're two
Munster
pretty
was a little
scary
bit
blokes.
quiet, but still
Ran a lot more than game one, but still,
yeah.
as he didn't need to blow the game over. Uh, and also touch on the rest all did their job. The bench was good too. Mo was quite good for his half hour.
You
Bogle
didn't
was
mention
too.
Chino, who's someone I probably wanted to
Oh yeah,
mention. He
yeah,
was very physical and did a lot of cleanup, done a lot of that mop up work in the middle of the field. Thought he had a fantastic game. And the two outstanding forwards for mine were Carrigan and Cotter.
Mm.
Cotter again just made his up near 50 tackles again, I think it was, and he gets through his 100 metres. Carrigan again made 30 odd tackles with only a couple of misses and 120 metres, I think it was. But a couple of those runs were really instrumental in getting the team on the front foot, especially the offload to DCE that basically set up the try at the next tackle where they go and explore in the opposite corner at the back end of the first half. And he was another one that was close to the best on the field.
yeah. The only thing, and this is only a nitpicking sort of knock, I'd love to see him close to the line. He plays he just shovels it on a lot. I'd love to see him burrow and have a crack himself, like you get a try basically. Like through the middle, he gets through his work so well, but he never really straightens up about 10 meters out. So I'd love to see him just try and burrow through at some point. It'll just add another element to his game. But up and down that whole Queensland team, they were all fantastic.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention Harry Grant. He didn't have a huge impact on the game, but he got out and did a couple of nice little runs there that caused a few problems for New South Wales. Ben Hunt, again, another one who just did his job and just sort of faded into the background, but did not make a mistake at all, majority of the night. Val Holmes, we probably glossed over him a bit. He had some really seriously good touches as well. So there was, absolutely
Val
a
was
team
great. Val was brilliant.
team of individuals.
Val was absolutely. I know he was, had Damien Cook to toy with, but his footwork was great. His kicking was impeccable, and his defense was more than solid as well. A couple of things because we'll move on. Like that's just quickly we'll knock over the voting. Who are you thinking here? 3, 2, 1.
I had DCE, and I gave Payne Haas the 2, even though he's in a beaten side. I thought he was the second best player on the field, and I had Carrigan. I thought the outside backs probably all took points off each other.
I was going to say it's rough on Val and Hammer, but I want to mention Val Holmes, so we'll go with that. A couple of things. Well, firstly, if the Australian team was being picked next week off this or at the end of this series, Reece Walsh is the Australian fullback.
Yeah.
That whole New South
Wales, DCE, Harry Grant, whole spine's Queensland.
The whole spine's Queensland. The whole forward pack is just about Queensland bar Payne Haas.
Payne Haas, maybe Junior Paulo.
It depends if you want to play the extra prop, but if you had to play any of those reserve props off the bench, you're not out of sorts, are you?
Yeah, and Murray might get a spot on the bench.
Yeah, he's probably on the bench, and that's about it. Yeah, and that backline, you can.
Trell's fit.
You have to somewhere. If Trell's fit, Trell's goes in, and may well go in fullback to be honest. But Trell's the only other one you'd even put in actually, and just like Addo-Carr had a particularly average game, I thought actually. About six.
Yeah, he touched the ball a couple of times. He used him as a batter.
He wasn't given any opportunity to shine, and Luai was a passenger.
Probably half scoots all night. Luai looked okay for about 15, 20 minutes. He actually looked a little
Yeah.
dangerous. He was sort of dancing around in front of a few people. But as soon as Cook went out onto that edge, he didn't want to give Cook.
Yeah.
It was noted by a couple that went 3 meters behind him and one that was rocketed straight into his face. It got pretty ordinary out there at times.
Yeah. He's more right about his Instagram after that.
Looks like it.
Where to for New South Wales? Because
Talk
if you're
about
looking at
tone deaf.
this,
Like, let's just mention that. Like an Instagram
yeah,
post. Like, yeah, if it's a shot at people that are sending him stuff on Instagram, obviously, probably maybe mention that in your post, maybe. I don't know.
yeah,
I know he's referring to idiots, but he's gone out of his way to tell everyone basically, suck in, you're all going to work, and I'm going to do nothing tomorrow.
yeah,
It's
yes,
just tone deaf. It's not needed. It's I think a lot of people need to subscribe to the fact that when the season's on, just try to stay away from your fucking social media.
I agree. It's I have nothing more to add. Yeah, what am I going to say? You haven't already said. Where to for New South Wales? Because if you look through this team, firstly, yeah, they haven't essentially picked on form a great deal.
No,
Uh, there's no one really. You'd have to really rack your brain to, yes, start by picking players in their position, I'd say. But that said, it's only really Campbell Graham and maybe Cody Walker, who's the informed 5'8" in the comp,
yep.
who should come in. There's not really anyone knocking the door down to be here.
No, not particularly.
I'd
Not at
suggest,
all, realistically.
yeah, there's no one you can blood game through. You probably just send the same blokes out,
Keelan,
cop it, and
maybe.
then start fresh.
Matangi probably deserves a spot.
Call
At
them a
least a
Tungy, I'd
crack.
agree.
I think they need to go and do the job now. Tell Freddie he's not needed for the game three. Bring a new coach in and go, rightio, set up your team for next year. And anyone that
Yeah,
you think might be an outside option or someone that you're looking at, bring Nico in. You've had him in and around the squad. Bring Campbell Graham in. Bring anyone that's sort of been on the periphery for the last couple of years in to play this game three. Get them blooded, get them a taste. Basically, get the new coach to say, okay, mate, put your backbone together and anyone that you want to have a look at, get them out there and see what you can do.
yeah, get Buller in
You get a
now.
free shot in game three and then start next year.
Yeah, Buller, Tupou, and Stafford in for game 3. Just get him in now. Uh, yeah, but definitely Campbell Graham. Fucking Campbell Graham's a World Cup winning centre. Like NRCG, I suppose, is the only other
Yeah,
one
obviously they're
you'd have in
forcing
about there.
Turbo out. Trail comes back or not, sure. But,
I'll give Teddy one more game as skipper. Thank you for that. But otherwise, like it's time to
yeah,
get Latrell to fullback as well and just get him
probably.
going. Any coaches come to mind?
Well, I was originally thinking maybe Hasler because he was outside of the outside of the NRL. So they seem to like to go that way now. The players aren't. They don't have coaching. They're not coaching in the NRL. Not really. Anyone you can think of off the top of your head?
Not really. The
See
only
these.
one that has
You want to go back to someone like Sticky, who's really all about passion and bringing that aggression and fight, all that kind of stuff back into this team. Try
what
and
about Madge, Kiwi coach? Um, unless you're outside the boat, unless you go and get, you may as well go get freaking Fletch and Heine to do it at this stage.
yeah,
Like I can't think of any, or Matty Johns.
yeah.
Uh,
Might get
because
Andrews.
even going, well, Andrew's there, and this is the thing, Andrew Johns is an assistant coach. He's
Yeah,
in
but
the
they
box
might
with them.
because
Well,
it's from
yeah, but it's the
what I
same
can take
result.
from it, it's Freddie and
It's
Alexander.
just, but if you go and get Gus Gould, he's only going to keep Freddie and Johns around the team. It's this whole boys' club through the whole thing. Like, unless you start again outside the box, I don't know what other result they expect.
Paul McGregor, maybe.
Yeah,
You'd
maybe.
have the Dragons going pretty well up until the Bellin ended up with the no fault stand down. And they sort of fell apart there.
Yeah, yeah. McGregor might not be the worst shout, or a Jim
See
Dimmick or
what they
someone.
do. Yeah, Jim Jimmy. Who was the Bulldogs front rower that was around for a little while and got shafted?
What about well, it's a bit late now, but someone like a Jason Rolls might have been worth the roll of the dice.
Yeah. Who was the big front rower for the Dogs that got shafted out of the Dogs.
Dean Pay.
Yeah, maybe even someone like the Dean Payne.
No, yeah, the problem is none of them have really,
Done anything
Nathan
for the last however
Nathan
long.
Brown,
Yeah.
Brett Kamali, none of them have exactly covered themselves in
Got the
glory since,
world
have they?
fly. No, absolutely. They might be waiting
Paul Mag-
for Bellamy to retire.
the answer is a pineapple because we don't have one,
Exactly.
and I assume they
Can
don't
we
either,
clone
which is
Billy and put him in a blue jersey? Which is
uh,
it's oh man, I can't how meticulous that bloke seems to plan out every part of everything they do. And he's able to adapt on the fly. He's only been here for 2 series, but they, I don't he's never been out coached in any game that he's played so far that I can see.
no,
Even the games that New South Wales have won, it hasn't been because the Queensland were beaten with better tactics or anything like that.
that's right. And there's no and yes, he's lucky enough to have Cam Smith and Jonathan Thurston and whoever else around, but
Of course.
in theory, so does Freddie. Like,
Everybody in the world you hear talk about him though says he is the most meticulous,
yes,
well thought out, well game planned, well managed coach running around and playing. Basically, Bellamy in a footballer's body. He's
and more
rap
power to him.
footballer's
I'd
body.
love to see him. It seems I know that he was their ultimate goal, but Rolls is there now. But I'd love to see him go to Clubland and see what he brings to the table there as well.
Yeah, yeah, but it'd probably be 5 or 6 years down the track from now, I would imagine. The way
But they
things
can
are going
legit
for
win.
him.
They can legit win the next 5 or 6 years because this team's only, apart from DCE, who
Absolutely.
could probably
They're
play
all
in a dinner suit
23,
anyway,
24.
they're going to get better. They're all going to get better. Like who's it?
The
Apart from, like I
oldest
said,
outside
DC's
back's Val,
35.
who's what, 27,
Yeah.
I think, 26. Rest of them are all 22, 23. No,
And what starts happening, as we saw with the Paul Gallen era, the New South Wales guys existing now, they're already scarred. Like
trauma.
you start
Yeah.
carrying the
Yes,
battle
big.
scars, like that Farah and Gallen carried for all that time,
Yeah.
and co.
And they get an actual combination. Like, even though they only play 3 games a year, they know, once you've played in those type of, the best of the best games with the best players around you, and you've done it 2 or 3 times with the same guy on your left and the same guy on your right, you know exactly what they're doing. You know the way they're
Yeah,
going to defend. You know the way what they're thinking, the way that they want to set up for attack. And you saw it through the dynasty with Queensland when they just continually toyed with New South Wales for years. So,
yeah, and they got Flegler up their sleeve already, who's won an Origin, and others, others around the periphery, Horsburgh, Capewell. Kafusi's older; he's not going to be forever. But if they needed him, he's there.
yeah,
It's
New South Wales do have a team to compete with them, but it's gone completely wrong this year and half of last year, so 3 quarters of last
all things being, yeah, right now, and they've created their own monster in that they're relying on Latrell Mitchell to carry him,
year.
and he hasn't been there. Uh, and if they are going to win Game 3, he'll need to be there because this will be a rinse and repeat if they don't. Anyway, we'll wait and see next year. I hope they back Latrell and just say, right, okay, we'll be the team around you. You're the one, and let's
Yep.
build forward and if that means Walker, if that means whoever Walker's not getting on, but I don't like it. Again, there's not New South Wales halves knocking the door down.
Nope.
Moses doesn't offend me. So, anyway, anything else from Origin?
Nope.